Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. UCLA Part 2, and this is the big one for the Big Ten outright regular season championship Saturday night. It's going to be on Fox Sports, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. Just a massive showdown, as big a regular season women's basketball game as USC has played in a very, very long time. So we are going to get to that game with USC women's basketball analyst CC Clay, who has a YouTube channel, who has a Substack, and is working with us on these podcasts. But be sure to follow and subscribe to her YouTube channel, subscribe to her Substack, make a paid contribution if you can afford it, because CC is providing top of the line USC women's basketball analysis, and she's going to be at the Big Ten women's basketball tournament next week. She is fully invested. Anything you can do to make the investment in CC Clay definitely be appreciated from us here on the Trojans Wired podcast. So CC, before we get into UCLA, had a little bit of Twitter beef, social media duking it out, and I don't need to say anything. I'll just let you set the table, explain what went on and what you think it means, like what you took from it and what it kind of shows about the way Juju Watkins and USC are perceived.
Yeah, so for those of you who follow me, I'm sure a lot of you saw the Twitter beef. I put a post out. It was just yesterday, I think it was. And I have the post right here. And it was Lindsey Gottlieb stating that she's probably the most game planned for college athlete in our sport ever. And I reposted that to my X feed, and it went viral. So far, it's gotten 400,000 views, so that's pretty much viral. I wasn't expecting it to go viral, but along with that going viral, it hit some fans that we know that are very loyal to a superstar by the name of Caitlin Clark, and they didn't take too kindly to that post, and they started coming at me. And what's interesting to me is I think a lot of them really didn't read the post. I think they looked at it as Juju was just this only superstar, and she's the only one that's that teams have to really prepare a strategy against. And that wasn't, to me, that wasn't what the post was saying at all. I think Lindsey Gottlieb, she's been around a lot of basketball players, and that's her player, and she's going to, boost her player. And I think that Lindsey has seen Juju for 2 years now, and she's been in the trenches. And so she sees the defenses that are thrown at Juju. And, Iowa fans didn't take to that very well. And, even when I posted something that came out of Caitlin Clark's own mouth about defenses that played against her in college, they still tried to change what she said out of her own mouth to their own narrative. That was crazy to me. That was wild. And I posted it for them, and I kept posting. I'm like, she's saying it out of her own mouth. And I think the thing that people have to realize is two things. Yes, this was not a dig at Caitlin Clark at all when I was coming back at these people. I had nothing to say about Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark should have never came up in this conversation, because this was about how a coach felt about her player. And people just took it to a whole nother level, as if she can't feel this way about her player, And what's even more interesting to me is if you go back and you really watched Caitlin Clark play, or Maya Moore, or I can go down the list, Cheryl Miller, Swoops, you know what I mean? There's more players that are great other than Caitlin Clark. They were, they had to have defensive plan against them as well. The interesting thing to me is that the Big Ten conference, for these people to come out and start talking about how they threw all types of stuff at Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark was, could just get out of it and blah, 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 blah. The Big Ten is not known for defense. It's not. The only good defensive teams in the Big Ten are Ohio State and Maryland. Iowa and Caitlin Clark herself didn't play defense. That's why they scored so many points. And they kept saying, well, that, Caitlin just knew how to beat the defense. That's why they scored so many points. No, it's because schools didn't play defense in the Big Ten. So, you know, it was just a rant back and forth, and I just got a kick out of it because I was just funny because I was able to rattle them so quickly that they started cussing me out, go f yourself, and calling me a dummy, and here I look at the numbers and I break down SC's offense all the time, or their game all the time, so I'm seeing all the stuff that's being thrown at Juju, and it's just amazing to me that they've never watched USC. So for them to come in and just start bantering when they've never even watched the USC game was just another one that's like, you guys just are just bonkers to me. It's more about Caitlin Clark, their angel, than about the game.
It really is curious that Lindsey Gotti was just saying, hey, I have to game plan to help Juju Watkins succeed. So I would know how complex and multifaceted and fierce these defensive looks are. You go from I saw your screen grab. Notre Dame was triple teaming her,
Yeah.
and of course that's with Kennedy Smith not on the floor. So
Yeah.
Notre Dame and Niele Ivey, they sensed weakness. We can exploit this. They were sending three. UConn, would obviously send multiple bodies whenever Gino gets a look at Juju, because Gino's came out and said after the loss to USC in December, you can't guard her one-on-one. It's like Gino knows you have to double her. So Lindsey Gottlieb she's just talking ball. She's just talking X's and O's. No innuendo, no slander, no hot takes.
Yeah, she's just talking about her player.
It's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in terms of blandness, right? There's nothing spicy, spicy at all. It really is remarkable.
It was just bonkers to me how they just took that one statement and just blew it so out of proportion and I think in one of my tweets I said something about the one who cussed me out. I said, you're out here cussing me out, but I'm proving my point because not one time have you said anything positive about the person who the post is really about. You're so busy gatekeeping to cover your superstar player that you can't even understand the post. You know what I mean? It was just crazy to me. So I got a kick out of the banter that I was doing back and forth because, you come on my timeline and then you want to accuse me of stuff, but you came on my timeline, and it was fun. It was fun for me. It seems like it's dying down now, which I think, I started blocking people because it was just like going in one ear and out the other, what I was trying to say to them. And, but I will say again that, USC can never strategically game plan to the point where other teams can game plan by watching film, because anytime USC gets on the floor, what you think you're game planning for as far as strategy and the defense that you think that team is going to play, they come out and they throw some junk defense. And I said this before, but it just goes to show you that you can't. It's so hard for Juju and the team because that's why they have to slow down and read the defense and figure out what the team is doing, whether it's a double or they're throwing a high hedge or whether they're trapping or boxing one, whatever or even there is no other team that has a player on their team that is a team is being as physical as they are with Juju. So they're being very physical with her. They're trying to mentally drain her. You know what I mean? They're trying to take her mentally out of the game so she'll be flustered. They double team her, they triple team her. And so all these other people that are coming on my timeline talking all that smack, they didn't do that to Caitlin. I'm sorry, I don't care. They didn't do that to Caitlin. They just didn't. And Caitlin even said it. That was the whole thing. They might, you know what, Matt, I'll give you this. They might have thrown a double every once in a while or a trap every once in a while. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like a full game, every game, nonstop, So just, I had fun with it. But I just learned that those Iowa fans they're something different. I'll tell you what.
Some Iowa fans obviously very rabid and they take it way over the line. But also, we've mentioned off the air in just private conversations that, when you recapped on your YouTube channel the USC Iowa game, you got a lot of feedback from Iowa fans, and it was constructive feedback. Like they love their women's basketball. It really is women's basketball is the thing in Iowa, along with Hawkeye football. But like you talk women's basketball to an Iowa audience, you're always going to get a big reaction. So like it is the ultimate audience right now for women's college basketball. And so a lot of knowledgeable hoop fans there. And just to kind of throw a little bit of an olive branch, I'll do it. And this is not to imply that like the people beefing with you were had a point. No, they did not. But I would just say personally, from watching Caitlin Clark the past few seasons, especially her final season, she had that Steph Curry like ability, to pull up from the logo, 35 feet splash. You can't really double team her when she's pulling and popping and swishing from 35 feet. So just, for the good Iowa fans, the knowledgeable Iowa fans, I would say there are certain things Caitlin Clark did which made it hard for opponents to throw bodies. You can't really send two people when a person's crossing half court. You're going to leave other people wide open down the floor. So Caitlin Clark did certain things to minimize that threat. But really on a broader level, Lindsey Gottlieb making the most obvious, basic observation on the planet, and for the bad Iowa fans who need a little bit of education, and you've been educating them, watch the Pac-12 tournament final last year. Tara, Juju lit up Stanford for 51 in Maples. So then we go to the Pac-12 tournament final, and Tara throws the junk defense at her, and she basically says, Mackenzie Forbes, supporting cast, you're going to beat me. Juju's not going to beat me. And the supporting cast did, but nevertheless, just everything Tara did in that game was to take Juju out of it. So really underscoring Lindsey Gottlieb's not very controversial point.
Yeah, and the other thing I will remind people of is that Caitlin, this is the other comparison. They kept saying, well, Caitlin Clark passes better. Blah, blah. Caitlin Clark is a point guard first. You know what I mean? Even when she went to Indiana, she liked passing the ball more than she liked shooting because that's what she wants to do. She's a point guard. Juju is not a point guard. She's a playmaker, and she can get to the rim. You know what I mean? If she can get to the rim before she can shoot the ball, that's what she'll do. You know what I mean? And I think that, Caitlin pushes the ball up the court, but Juju gets that ball up the court too. You know what I mean? And the other thing I'll remind people of is Juju is a two-way player. Caitlin Clark is not. Caitlin Clark does not play defense. She just doesn't. So they'll go out of their way to protect their little angel, which is fine. I have a lot of respect for Caitlin, but don't come on my timeline attacking me, Juju, and Juju's coach for something that she feels about her player. I'll just shut you down, which I did. So.
Yeah, you were Rhea Marshall swatting him in the paint, providing that denial defense. Okay, so let's now move to the next item on the agenda, and we'll get to the UCLA game, of course, but there was another bracket reveal, bracketology, where USC falls. Is it on the 1 line? Is it on the 2 line? And we've talked in recent weeks about how there really seem to be like 8 to 10 legitimate national title contending teams. And which cross matchups are we going to get? Who's going to be the 1? Who's going to be the 2 in each region? Which are the teams that USC would prefer to get? Which are the teams that USC would like to avoid? And you've written about this at your Substack. You have a recent post with the various metrics comparing USC, UCLA, Texas, Notre Dame, UConn, South Carolina. So please go to CC's Substack. You're going to get the inside details, in-depth numerical analysis, a look at the metrics, really just great bread and butter information on how USC and these other 1 and 2 seeds in the upcoming NCAA tournament stack up against each other. So tell us what you learned from the bracket reveal and what you think this means before this USC UCLA game and then the Big Ten tournament and all the other conference tournaments across the country.
Yeah, I didn't think USC would move up to the number 1 line until after they beat UCLA a second time. But I was happy that they did. But the one thing that's frustrating for me or concerning for me is UConn at the 2 in USC same bracket right now, because that puts them head to head in the final 8 again. And we don't want that. UConn is the type of team that we don't want to play. We want to play a team like Texas. Go read my Substack and you'll find out why. But what I'm hoping is that We beat UCLA twice, knocked them off the top line. We go as the number one overall seed, and then UConn moves up to that two line. To that other number one, and then we meet in the Final Four. Because if you look at the numbers, not the basketball numbers, but if you look at revenue numbers, we're going to talk about revenue numbers right now. The best outcome for TV, right, for ROI would be a Juju Paige Beckers in the final. So I'm hoping somehow it shakes out that way, because right now the way it's playing out, the way they have the 16, it's not going to play out that way. UConn has to be moved out of the bracket, or we do, for it to play out that way. So I'm hoping that we have some shakeups in these tournaments. UConn possibly will move up without that many shakeups if they win their conference tournament, which I think they will. And South Carolina loses again. Notre Dame might lose. So there's got to be some shakeups. And we got to come ready to play, or we'll drop down to a 2. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, the way they have the bracket set up is very important, because I know what we will match up if, by reading that Substack, you can figure out what teams we would match up well against and which ones we would not early. So UConn has got to move out of that bracket somehow, some way.
Okay, so you want to go to CC's Substack, subscribe if you can, but certainly read her article comparing but the likely 1 and 2 seeds, and which ones get paired in each region. That's going to be important. I would only add, to have USC and UConn in the Elite Eight 2 straight years, to put them in the same region 2 straight years, that would seem awfully unfair to both programs, right? You should be giving them a different challenge. And also, you should not try to have a rematch if at all possible. And that's why USC and Texas in the same region, you've said it would be a good matchup for USC. Forget that. It wouldn't be a rematch, because you've had South Carolina play UCLA and UConn. You've had Notre Dame play UConn and USC. Find the non-rematches, please. Like that's not too hard. Like, Notre Dame UCLA or UConn UCLA.
Yeah.
They haven't played. Like some people might say, oh, that's going to be a tough matchup, but you didn't play in the regular season. And that's what the NCAA tournament is supposed to be about. Fresh, original matchups. And this is going in any direction, not just one specific lane, any direction. So hopefully we won't see rematches in the Elite Eight. The sport deserves better. The sport deserves these new matchups to see which team is better. And I would just add that, hey, USC already beat UConn on the road. Why would you ask USC to have to beat UConn a second time? That would not sit well with me at all.
No, that wouldn't be right to do that to SC. And so that they played them once, and then they played them last year. And now you're going to put them in the final 8 together again. That's a setup all the way. Why do that? You're losing your money making game early. You know what I mean? And then you just don't do something like that. It's not politically correct to do something like that. So, I'd rather see USC play South Carolina in that regional 8. And I think that we can beat South Carolina.
100% agree. But of course, it's a couple weeks until Selection Sunday. But yeah, so we wanted to get some initial thoughts on the bracket reveal. Obviously, that's going to be a continuing storyline, and 2 weeks left. So these remaining games are going to adjust the seed lines for USC and the other top teams. All right, CC, it's time to talk about UCLA Part 2. And, we gave a little bit of a sneak peek earlier in the week when we were mostly, doing our senior day appreciation for this wonderful senior class. But we talked a little bit about this game. And the obvious number one plot point is Corey Close and how she handles Juju Watkins the second time around after Juju roasted the Bruins for 38 and just, played not just the game of the year, but one of the best games of all time, any player, anytime. And I think, so that plot point is obvious, but here's kind of my follow-up from our conversation earlier this week in our previous episode. And that is that you could have USC and UCLA play 8 days from March 1st in the Big Ten tournament final. So like if you're Corey Close, you obviously you want to do a better job on Juju, no question about that. But like, do you want to throw everything at her in this game at home when maybe you can just challenge your team to be better And then you think about, all right, in the Big Ten tournament, that's when I'm gonna, unload the fun house and throw all the mystery looks and tweaks and wrinkles. There's something to be said for not showing all your cards right now, knowing that there could be more battles down the line, and maybe, telling your players, hey, let's just defend her straight up because we need to be this good to get to our first Final Four. That's UCLA, never been to the women's Final Four. Oh, but there's also the line of thought, hey, this is for the Big Ten outright championship. We need to go all in now. Forget about later. Forget about Indianapolis. So, Cece, weigh those different plot points and as we try to get at how Corey Close is going to approach the Trojans in this game.
Here's my thought on it. This is the first Big Ten championships, but there's a lot more at stake than that. As we just saw the top 16 reveal. This is a must win for UCLA because if they lose to USC 2 games in a row, they might go off that one line right away. And it won't matter if they win the Big Ten championship. USC has beaten them twice in a row, right? They beat them once at home and once at Poly. So if UCLA beats them on a neutral court, it's not going to have that much of an effect. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that this is a must win for UCLA, and Corey's going to have to do everything that she can to get her team ready and to throw everything at USC because this is a must win. It's a must win for both teams, but more so for UCLA because we already beat them.
So in terms of throwing everything at Juju, obviously more doubles, than what we saw on February 13th. A lot of one-on-one. So more doubles, but within that, what do you think the more specific wrinkle is going to be? And does it start with, you think, one primary defender that you have in mind, or is it going to be less about, which players are doubling and more about where the doubles are coming from, just in terms of angles and the geometry of the court? Like, are they going to try and double her in the middle of the floor? Are going to try to maybe pin her along the sideline if she's near the sideline? Is it going to be, let's make sure she doesn't post us up, or if she does, we're going to swarm her in the post on the block? Is it, hey, we have Lauren Betts in the middle. Let's make sure that Juju doesn't get hot from 3. We'll let her drive, trusting that Lauren Betts is going to deter her at the rim. How do you think the wrinkles might look? How they might manifest on the court?
I'm Corey Close, and I go back and watch game film of different games. The one problem that USC has had, other than people doubling Juju, is against zone defenses. So I might come out and throw a zone defense on there. If I'm Corey, a 2-3 zone, and let the team beat UCLA from the outside, because their 3-point shooting hasn't been consistent. So I'd force them to shoot and wouldn't let anything inside. And maybe I'd switch it up. Maybe on a made basket we go zone, and on a missed basket in transition we're doubling Juju so she can't get to the rim on a transition ball. That's my thinking. Will she do that? I don't know, because Corey Close doesn't really run zone a lot. But the other thing that I'm thinking about is Janiah Barker might have a bigger role in this game, where she came out and she defended Juju pretty well. I mean, Juju still cooked her, but she still defended her pretty well, and so did London Jones. Even though London Jones is 5'3", she bothered Juju because she was so small and Juju's so tall. So when she bounces the ball, she bounces it high. So that affected Juju because London could just steal the ball away. But that's my observation. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Corey Close does. But I'm thinking, if I'm the coach, I'm going to play zone on made baskets, and I'm going to trap and run doubles on transitions.
X and O talk. I love it. This is really fun. My follow-up to what you just said. Let's say Lindsay Gottlieb is thinking along your same wavelength. Maybe Corey Close is going to go zone, or maybe a triangle and 2, and to throw a monkey wrench at the USC offense. If you're Lindsay Gottlieb, do you kind of wait for Corey Close to show her cards, or do you try and play some mind games with Corey Close and you come out with Avery Howell, either maybe not starting, but playing more first quarter minutes so that if there's a zone, you have a zone buster on the court. What do you think Lindsey Gottlieb might do to anticipate
Yeah.
what Corey Close does? Or does Lindsey Gottlieb just sit back and wait? Hey, Corey, ball's in your court. You got roasted the last time. I'm going to wait to see you show your hand, and then I'll adjust. Do you try to be proactive, or do you wait for Corey Close to show her cards?
No, I think she's going to wait. She's going to wait and see what Corey is doing, and she also needs to wait and see how our team reacts to what Corey's doing, and if our shooters are going to be shooting the ball correctly. I mean, if they're going to hit their shots on Saturday, and she needs to wait and see how Kiki's going to play because Kiki didn't have a good game. On the last time we played UCLA, so I'm expecting that's going to be different because I think that they're going to put Kiki in different positions to set her up to be successful in this game. They're going to get her more out on her wing shot where she can shoot the ball and make it. And I think that if they're in a zone again, setting back picks along the perimeter of the baseline and getting Avery in there to hit her baseline jumper and Kenny to hit her baseline jumper will do wonders in opening up the floor. So they'll be forced to go man, and then Juju can go to work, driving to the rim.
Okay,
But
so
it's all dependent on what UCLA plays.
Sure. So in terms of, you hit on another central plot point that Kiki Iriafen, didn't shoot great in the first game. So you would think that USC is going to need her to have a really strong game if it's going to get out of Pauley Pavilion with a win. So, UCLA's first focus, don't get roasted by Juju a second time. But the second focus is, hey, there's Kiki Iriafen, whom UCLA knows well from Stanford. They're going to be fully attentive on Kiki. Who's the role player for this USC offense that you think can emerge as that key, very important third wheel? If UCLA's primary is Juju and the secondary is Kiki in terms of points of focus, who's that third wheel who becomes, what Mackenzie Forbes was often against UCLA last year? Who's that third wheel for USC's offense in this game?
The third wheel is the combined freshmen together. The combined freshmen together. If you remember last game, none of them had good shooting nights other than Juju. Juju needed to get that 38 for us to win the game. Kennedy wasn't hitting her shots. K9 wasn't hitting her shots. Avery wasn't hitting her shots, and Kiki wasn't hitting her shots. So if you have Juju and Kiki playing well, Kennedy's got to be able to hit her 3-point shots on the baseline. She's got to be able to offensive rebound or get defensive rebounds like she was doing last game. And Avery's got to come in, and we got to get Avery shots. We got to put her in a position to be able to catch and shoot because she's our sniper. And if we can get Avery going and Kennedy going, and K9 comes in and takes Kiki to the glass, beats her on a drive, everybody's got to be ready to play. Now, I will tell you, I think they'll be ready to play because now they've had their taste of UCLA. And none of those players that didn't play well the last game, they didn't feel good about it. So I know that they have a lot to prove too. And don't think Lindsey's not talking to them about the importance of this game. This is an important game. To beat UCLA at Pauley Pavilion 2 times in a row sets USC up. Their confidence is going to go way high, and it puts them in a good position to start that good March run. So psychologically, Lindsey is doing work right now.
You could be sure. And the fact that USC has 5 full days off, they went through that meat grinder of a schedule in the middle of February. Now the schedule has opened up for them at just the right time as a reward for all the wins that they got on short rest. Now they get the extended preparation time. It's really a good situation for Lindsey Gottlieb to mentally prepare her team for this game. All right, let's continue this talk about the chess match. I love it here on the Trojans Wired podcast with CC Clay. Your X factor for the February 13th part 1 in the Galen Center was Clarice Okunwofo, and you nailed it. You called your shot. You hit the 500-foot Shohei Ohtani bomb with that call. I'm going to ask you a Clarice question, but it's going to go in a direction that's different from what you were probably anticipating, and that is we know her value on defense against Lauren Betts and USC's ability to use 10 fouls, 2 big bodies against Lauren Betts with Rhea Marshall in tandem with Clarice. But what about offense? That gets under discussed with Rhea and Clarice. Is there something specific about either Clarice or Rhea that they can bring to the table other than just putting back misses? Is there something in the deployment of personnel in a specific spot on the court that might give USC an extra key to crack the code against UCLA's defense?
If you watch games when Clarice is in there, Clarice is really good at pick and rolls around the rim. So if Juju, if they set up a two-man game with Clarice picking Juju's person and then Clarice rolls to the basket, Juju usually can find her because she puts it up high for Clarice. I think you might see a little bit more than that because what's going to happen is going to draw Lauren to Juju, and she's going to be able to feed Clarice right around the rim. So I think that there's an opportunity of opening for us to do pick and rolls with Clarice or the two-person game between Rhea and Kiki. Rhea at the top and Kiki at the bottom, feeding Kiki. Rhea can hit that mid-range free throw shot if she doesn't think about it. When she starts to think about it, that's when she misses because she just takes too long and she's thinking about it too much instead of just going into the flow of her shot. So, and I think, being that this is Rhea's last game against UCLA, she's going to come into this game, final season, Big Ten season game before going into the tournament. But this is, I think you're going to see Rhea not think about it and shoot some shots right in the paint area and not be afraid to do it. But mostly, their game, Clarice and Rhea, is defense. They're not looked upon as a primary, secondary, or third impactful player on offense for us. Their energy is more well spent playing good defense to set up our offense, if that makes sense. So if they're playing good defense to set up our offense, whether it be transition or moving the ball down the court faster to get it to the open player on a pro-style reads scenario, then they've done their job. And that's how impactful they can be on the offensive side.
Absolutely. Another question about Clarice and Rhea, because obviously, USC having the ability to have two quality bigs against Lauren Betts, that's a matchup component USC brings to the table that most other UCLA opponents don't have. It's why USC, has such a decent chance to win when it takes the floor with UCLA. My other Clarice Rhea question is, in terms of the rotations, in terms of the amount of minutes, do you want to just send one of them out for each 4-minute segment? We have the media timeouts under 16, under 12, under 8, under 4. Do you think it's important to kind of get continuity with one and maybe, play one for, 8 minutes or like 2 media timeouts? Or do you want shorter bursts so that when they're on the floor, they can give maximum energy, but you're rotating them a little bit more so that Lauren Betts doesn't get used to one specific style of defense against her, and you're keeping your players fresher if they are rotating a little bit more? How would you get at that point? Do you want to ride one for an extended period of time, provided there's no foul trouble, of course, or do you want to have more frequent and shorter rotations with Clarice and Rhea?
The UCLA game, in my opinion, Clarice is the much stronger player in with regards to guarding Lauren Betts. Rhea is 6'4", Lauren Betts is 6'7", and she's stockier, and so it gives Rhea a mismatch per se. So if you do 4-minute bursts, during those 4-minute bursts, when Rhea's in, are we going to double or are we going to do single coverage? So a lot is dependent on, what Lindsey Gottlieb's thinking is. We tried to do single coverage with her last game and it didn't work. We had to double her, and that's when you saw Juju coming down and helping out. So I think you're going to see Clarice play as many minutes as we can get out of her without fouling. And I still think that you're going to see a double. You're not going to see single coverage on Lauren, especially if she starts scoring in the paint. But, the players, Rhea and Clarice, they know her move. I mean, she really only has one move. She gets the ball, she holds it too long, and then she turns to the outside and tries to shoot that little banker around the rim. So they know what her move is. So as long as they know what her move is, and then who's ever guarding her, whether it's Rhea or Clarice, they can't let her get deep in the paint. They got to push her out. because she doesn't like what I call the lava. She doesn't like going into the lava. She likes staying right in that paint area. She's scared of the lava. She can't do much in the lava. So if we get her out in the lava, she'll be irrelevant. And then it's a Kiki Rice show. Kiki's going to have to drive and play make and create. But I don't think you see Lindsay do them in 4 minute bursts or 2 minute bursts. I think everything is dependent on how our players are reacting to Lauren Betts' offense. And if Corey Close might be pulling out a rabbit out of her hat and have a different type of offense that she's going to instill just to play against USC to be counterproductive of what USC is game planning for.
Now, you brought up a really key plot point: USC doubling, especially in the minutes when Rhea is guarding Lauren Betts to give Clarice a breather. When USC is doubling Lauren Betts, does UCLA usually have just one person pretty consistent as the kick out option on one side of the court? And is it usually strong side or weak side? Or does Corey Close usually mix it up in terms of which person is entering the ball to Lauren Betts and is therefore the kick out option when USC collapses? Take us through the chess match there from Corey Close's vantage point.
Yeah. I think it's multiple players because Lauren Betts is so tall. She can just put that ball over her head and she pivots really well. So she can pivot and she sees the whole floor. So she's going to go to the open player. So that's why it's important for us to, if she's going to the open player on the opposite side of the baseline, which would be the weak side, we got to make sure that we have help over there too. Somebody shifting down to get that to stop that 3-point shot from going off. If it's going to the strong side, I just think that we're so good defensively that we're going to shut that down like we did last game. We took Lauren, what's her name, London Jones out of her game completely. And we took Kiki Rice out of her game completely because of Kennedy's shutdown defense. So I think that we're going to have to do that, but more this game because we're playing at Poly and because they got a taste of the USC defense. They're going to game plan a lot better now.
And you mentioned on our previous podcast, in our Illinois review and also our Senior Day tribute episode, you mentioned how central it is for that Kiki Rice Kennedy Smith matchup for Kennedy to shut Kiki Rice down a second time, and from the UCLA standpoint, Kiki Rice, showing that, hey, I'm an elite player too. This is my stage, not just Lauren Betts. Of another very, very central component of this game. All right, I've been peppering you with questions. The floor is yours, Cece. Tell us just what else you're looking for in this game, whether it's from a statistical standpoint, a category, a target for USC to hit, a target for UCLA to hit, for that matter, and other components of this game you're looking forward to.
We have to keep our turnovers down. Again, this is a very important thing, especially in this game. We have to keep our turnovers. I think we got over 20 turnovers against UCLA the last game. We can't go there this game because they're going to be ready for that. So we can't turn the ball over, and we have to win the free throw line. We have to win the we have to shoot more free throws than them in this game. So that means that Juju's going to be taking the ball to the rim and getting fouled or whatever the case may be. If we can win the free throw line, competition will win the game. Games are won on the free throw line, and we're good at we're like one of the top teams in the nation at getting to the free throw line. We can't stop doing that for this game.
Any other, okay, so if USC outdoes UCLA, yeah, in terms of numerical targets, we've done that game before, kind of a Price is Right pricing game. Set the number for turnovers and for various offensive and defensive efficiency metrics that, what are some numbers that you think USC needs to hit? Like we've talked about finishing near the rim, you should be in the 60s at least, especially Kiki.
Yeah.
She can't be shooting around 50%. She needs, or high 40s. She needs to be in the 60s. So that's one item. Turnovers, like we always set the ideal at 10, but 13 might be okay. Might not be fantastic, but like if you're south of 15, that keeps USC in the ballgame for sure. You certainly can't get up into the high teens. So, of these various numbers, what are some targets that you
first
have
of all,
for this game?
I need to make a correction. I was absolutely wrong. They only had 9 turnovers their first game against the UCLA, so we need to be right around there. We need to keep that the same. personal fouls, we had 18. We can't have that many personal fouls. And then offensive rebounds, we only had 9. So we need to get that number up. That's in the red. And then again, we have to make our shots. We only shot 33% from the field. So we have to get that number up. And if we're shooting our threes need to be around 33%, but our twos need to be up in the 40s. So if we can hit 33% from the 3-point line, we're okay. Now against UCLA, what's interesting, third and the last game, our 3-point percentage was a 44, even though we weren't hitting shots. So go figure, right? But we didn't take that many. We only took 18 three-pointers.
But USC shut down UCLA from 3-point range. UCLA did not do well on threes.
Yeah. And then steals, they didn't, UCLA didn't have any, they only had 3 steals to our 9. So, here's the thing. This is why this is such a great matchup, because we are a transition team. This is like the scenario when you're talking about the tournament. We are a transition team. If we can get out on transition, we're good. If we have to play half-court offense, we're not so good. So our whole bottom line to get return on our own investment as a team is transition. We got to get out on transition, which means we got to rebound, we got to block out, we got to play tough defense, we got to go. You know what I mean? If UCLA is able to take that part of the game away from us, which is what they're going to be trying to do, because I'm sure as they looked at the film, they saw that we were able to get out on transition. So if they are to come into this game and slow us down, it gives them a better chance of winning this game.
So much to look forward to. It's for the Big Ten championship outright, no shared, no split titles. It's for the outright Big Ten title, and it is also for very likely a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Hey, games don't get much bigger than this, and hey, for older hoop fans, not just women's basketball, but basketball in general, like this brings back memories of, and I wasn't alive for this, but 1971. USC and UCLA meeting in Pauley Pavilion at the very end of the season. And that was when the NCAA tournament was just 25 teams and only the conference champion went. And that was USC's greatest men's basketball team ever. And, if USC had won, USC probably goes to the Final Four in 1971. But of course, that was the John Wooden dynasty at UCLA. But really, this is a game on par with that, from a historical perspective for the older hoop heads in the crowd listening to our Trojans Wire basketball podcast. What a magnificent moment for these two schools.
And Corey really wants to win this game because Lindsay Gottlieb has her number. I think UCLA, they beat us 1 time last year. We beat them twice, and then we beat them once this year. So Corey has got to she's got to get the egg off her face, especially in Pauley Pavilion. So it's going to be a big night. It's going to be tough for us. It's going to be a tough game for us because we're not at home. But if USC mentally sticks to the game plan and goes in there knowing how much is on the line and doesn't fall to the pressure of how much is on line, but just goes in there and plays, we should come out with a win. I'll have boots on the ground. I will be there. With the media crew. So I'm looking forward to that and just excited.
All right. As we close down our show, you have a YouTube channel to promote. You have a Substack to promote. Tell us you're doing a million different things, but hey, it's March. This game, March 1st, it's that time of year. You're stepping your game up. So just tell everybody what's going on at your YouTube channel, what's going on at your Substack, just a heaping platter of content for UCLA.
Yeah, I will have a new Substack out tomorrow overviewing the UCLA SC game. So if you're more of a reader and you like to look at stats and how I write, I'm very number driven when I write too. So look for that to come out tomorrow. And then, of course, I'll be covering the post-game press conference at the UCLA game, so you can see that on my YouTube channel. And then I'll do a breakdown of that game, win or loss, on my YouTube channel as well. And then I'll be heading out to Indiana.
And we'll do a review show over the weekend or maybe Monday on this second USC UCLA game. We say second because there could be a third one in
Yes.
Indianapolis. All right, CC.
Yes.
So have a great time at Poly Pavilion. Obviously, a great time means USC is going to win, but we shall see. But win or lose, what a magnificent moment for Los Angeles women's college basketball. It's going to be quite a scene, and it's on Fox Sports. None of this Peacock junk. We get, of
By the way, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just have to tell y'all something
course, of
that
course.
the USC women's game against Illinois Sunday. It was Sunday, right? I'm so tired right now. I was in
Yeah,
Fresno all day today, so I'm tired. That game, the crowd there was 9,000 and something. Outdid the crowd for the UCLA men's basketball game at the same time. So that tells you who's running LA right now.
absolutely. And and at UCLA, men's basketball, like a 6 seed, like that's a failure. Like UCLA fans do not show up if their team's going to be like a mid-level seed. But yeah, so USC really has it going on. All right, CC. So best of luck with all your coverage, and folks. Come on, this is the best USC women's basketball analyst on social media. We don't say that lightly because, like, you just listened to about 40 minutes of high-end analysis, marrying statistical mastery with the X's and O's, the plot points, the context. You don't get anything better than CC Clay. So subscribe to her YouTube channel, subscribe to her Substack. Like, she's doing the written work, she's doing the video work, and she's appearing here doing audio for the Trojans Wire podcast. So CC's making the investment in USC. We invite you to make the investment in CC Clay. All right, we will see you after USC UCLA Part 2. It's going to be fun. Thanks for joining us here on the Trojans Wired podcast.